know.
Ciao a tutti. We're now at the recap for Paul Caneiro's murder trial. You know, the royal family in England has I guess, a motto, a saying, never complain, never explain. Well, this is Prof Jo at Prof Jo Explains, so I missed the first part of that. My whole channel is explain. But today, I really have reached the complaining point. Not that I'm ever immune from complaining, but today I really feel I need to complain because the trial stopped again before 4. And although I've watched with annoyance but equanimity when trials don't go a full day in another state, this is the state where I pay taxes. And although I'm not in Freehold where the trial is being held, and I'm not in Monmouth County, which is the county in which the trial is being held, and I assume that most of the costs are going to those taxpayers, I'm also sure that as a New Jersey resident, I'm paying taxes somehow, some way for this trial. And as a New Jersey taxpayer, I am complaining. So if you ever saw any resemblance between me and King Charles or Prince William or the late Queen Elizabeth, which I doubt you ever did, disabuse yourself, because explain I do and complain I do. So anyway, there was only one witness all day today. He was Detective Stephen Vogt, Vogt, of the Monmouth County Prosecutor's Office, and he was an absolutely great witness. I have been impressed generally with the law enforcement and firefighters on the scene and the investigators who have testified. They have been professional. They have responded to questions from the defense neutrally. They have not engaged in any kind of tit for tat or, push pull with the defense. They from all I see and where I am, they did a great job doing the investigation, collecting the evidence, understanding what they were doing, which makes the prosecution easier. And this detective was the best of all of them that I've heard and seen. He was just first rate. So his actual role, excuse me, is he's the evidence custodian, and he's in charge of collecting the evidence at the scene, and he's responsible for the maintaining of the evidence, sending it out to the lab or sending it out to somebody else who needs to take a look at it or do something with it. And he was meticulous in how he worked, at least so far as I could tell, meticulous in how he worked. And he collected a lot of evidence. Among the evidence was wise cams and video recorders. And there he is explaining that he's holding up right now in that picture that Amber pulled is the jacket that Keith, or the coat that Keith Caneiro was wearing when he was killed. And they mounted it on mortarboard, and you can see some of the holes in the jacket where he was shot. So anyway, he collected video cams and the recorders from the scene, and they opened the bag and showed one of them. And the one they showed was the video recorder in the kitchen. Now, I don't know whether or what they're going to find on that. We don't know that yet, but that's the one he showed. But there were several bags. I think there were 6, maybe 7 in total. A couple of them were from the garage. The others were placed around the house. The one in the kitchen was on the kitchen counter, and it was below the counter between the cabinets there and the island where the 11-year-old Jesse's body was found. So this witness, as I said, did a really great job of explaining the evidence. One example is they had the cadaver dog yesterday, and his handler or his partner, as the uh, the cadaver dog handler described the dog. Today, they talked about another dog and handler that they use. This one was trained not in detecting cadavers, but human scent. And one of the things this detective did was he had a map of the whole area, including where the house was and the lands around the house. And then he drew on, or had drawn, it was already done, around the house, the area in which the police considered it the search area where they searched. And it went more than 1 mile out, at least in one direction. And the dog, who was trained in human scent, alerted to a pair of gloves at sort of the end of where that perimeter search was, near a soccer field. And they collected the gloves there. I think they were yellow gloves, but don't hold me to that. They looked yellow to me, but maybe they weren't. And Detective Vogt, in order to give an idea, because all the picture where the gloves would show was a field around the gloves, to try to give some sense of where the gloves were in relation to the entire scene, he took a picture of the road with the gloves so that you could see the street or that road that you could exit from the house and get on, so that the jury could get one sense of it. And then you got the picture of where the house was. So the jury had a really good sense of where these gloves were in relationship to the house and in relation to the search. And as I said, the gloves were found about a mile from, maybe I didn't, the gloves were found about a mile from the house. So it was that kind of thing, attention to detail and thinking about how you could best explain it to the jury, that he did just really well. He was, I said exceptional. I can't say enough about him. So let me go on. They found a gun last week. They were down in the basement, and one of the other officers talked about all the firearms they found. There were a host of guns. There was one laser gun where you didn't need bullets, and bullets apparently are expensive. So you could shoot with the laser gun and practice your shooting. There were 12 or 14 rifles. There was a shotgun. There was a bulletproof vest. Let me think if I remember. Oh, and there were more than 2,000 rounds of ammunition down in the basement. There also was, as I recall, a gun that had been found in the upstairs, maybe the master bedroom, in a drawer. This gun was found on the first floor in the kitchen, and it had been badly burned. You could see how really badly burned it was. And so that gun was found. Then he talked about all the shells and shell casings. They found a host of them around in the house and around the house. So he talked about the excuse me, the bodies that they had found, and he went over with the blood where the bodies were. And the first one that they showed was Keith Canairo's body, and they actually showed a picture of the body. And I think the reason why they did, because normally you would not see that on the stream. You would see it if you were in the court, because some of those pictures are going to be posted on the screen for the jury. But we don't see them on the stream. But this one was Paul Caneiro, and there's a body covered by a tarp, in a blue jacket. And he was face down on the ground. His feet were crossed. His arms were under his body. And the jacket had a hood. So the hood was over his head. So all you could see was, excuse me, essentially what that shows with the tarp. But you could see his legs in the picture that they actually showed. Excuse me. And the officer also said that Detective Vogt said that there were a couple of bullets or bullet casings found around Paul Caneiro's, Keith Caneiro's body. One near his feet, and one somewhere near the body, the torso of the body. Then we went to inside the house, and Jennifer Caneiro's body was found in the foyer near the front door. She had been both shot and knifed. And then Sophia's body was found close to where Jennifer Caneiro's body was found. And his testimony was that Sophia's body was stabbed multiple times in the torso and in the face. And you remember from the other day, one stab wound was in her eye. Also in her extremities, meaning arms and legs, she was stabbed multiple times. And she was found, remember those pictures of the stairs going upstairs, the stairs going downstairs, and that's right after you come in the front door. That's the stairs leading to the basement. But on the first floor, between the stairs that are going upstairs to the second floor and the stairs going down to the basement, that area there is where Sophia's body was found. And if you remember from last week, maybe the week before, I don't know how long this trial's been going. It feels like it's been going my whole life. The firefighter said that when he was going in, this is the first set of firefighters that went in, smoke was so heavy they couldn't see anything. He had his left hand on the wall, anchoring him so he couldn't get lost in this smoke-filled house and maybe die of smoke inhalation or whatever. And as he was doing this from the front door, he encountered a body. That was Sophia's body. And they carried her body out. At that point, I think they weren't sure whether she was dead or alive, so they took the body out. So she was the only body that wasn't found in the location, and that's the stairs going downstairs again. She was the only body that was not found where the killing happened. Then he talked about Jesse Caneiro's body. Jesse was found in the kitchen, as I said, between the cabinets and the island on the floor. And he also had been stabbed multiple times. He was stabbed multiple times in the face and in the torso, and apparently his extremities less so. So that's where they were all found. And we saw some of the blood stains on the floor, and it was really kind of horrifying to look at it, clearly horrifying. And I said at the trial today that, I started feeling as though the house was a victim, because we went through and saw so many pictures of the house. We've seen pictures of the house over and over and again, but boy, did we see many of them today. And the house was just really destroyed. And I really started feeling, this sounds ridiculous, but I started feeling sorry for the house. And of course, the house had been leveled after this was all over. So among the other pieces of evidence that this detective collected, because he's the custodian of all of it, were the electric meter. Remember, we've seen a lot of pictures of that meter with the cover off and the cap to it on the ground. He collected all of that. He took pictures of all the areas where the blood was. So we saw all those. He recovered a phone and a laptop, and he handed those over to the forensics people to see if they could extract anything from them. And then he, believe accompanied, but at least he was there at the autopsy for the family. And he talked about, and the autopsies were done on November 21. And he said that, what did he say about this? And he took photos. He had some photos there. He recovered the clothes that Keith had been wearing. And so he had the jacket and the hood, and you saw the picture of the jacket of the hood being mounted on that mortarboard. And the jury was shown that. He also did a remarkable job. There we are. We're back to seeing that. He also did a really remarkable job of situating so you could really tell the layout of the house. He had a diagram of the entire layout of the house, and he went through it room to room, particularly on the first floor. You come in the front door, there are the stairs going up, the stairs going down. The kitchen is right off that area when you come in on the other side of the hall. And he did a remarkable job of showing all that. He also had photos of the rooms. So after he was doing the diagram, he correlated the photos that were taken with the diagram, which I think, again, was just a wonderful job. He also made clear what the entry to the basement looked like. He said you could enter the basement in 3 different ways. One of them was where the carport was and where the door to the garage. You could come in that way. And then if you turn left, you were at the mudroom, and from the mudroom, you were into the kitchen. Or you could walk a little, and then there was another door, and that door led to the basement. And what I thought was really interesting from that was that if anybody had come in through the garage, they could get down to the basement easily to set the fire. Remember, yesterday, the fire expert talked about having located the fire in a contained area in the basement, and then it smoldered for a long time before it finally, the roof started caving, so the oxygen got in and the fire then took off. So you could easily do that, and at the same time, then either come up the stairs from the basement, the stairs that where Sophia's body was found, where you come in from the front door and you could go upstairs or downstairs, or you could go back through the garage and enter the kitchen and come in that way. So it seemed to me that was really interesting. We have not had anyone talk about what they think might have been the order of the shootings and the knifings, and I don't know whether they will do that. I'm sure if they try, there'll be a defense objection, but we haven't heard that yet. Then we also saw the second floor and the bedrooms up there and where they were situated, which was also pretty helpful. And he also did pictures from the outside of the house. So when you were in the garage, he could situate what was going outside. From the second floor where there's a balcony, he showed you that balcony from outside. So you could look up and see the balcony. And then he had the picture inside the master bedroom. So you could look out and see the balcony and the backyard. And he, every single time, explained where he was as the photographer. So, I mean, it was just, I'm not visual, and it was pretty easy to follow. I thought it was really just a great job. So then, this is not what I want. I have notes over here, so let me go back to my other notes. The autopsy of Jesse came up with one earring, and the defense asked about whether they could be sure how that earring got there. It might have been somewhere else. And of course, this witness couldn't say one way or the other, but it was found with the body. And I thought, if they're trying to decide whether the 11-year-old wore an earring, it must show up in some photo that they took of him. And I assume that they've gone through and looked at photos to see if they could tie it that way. But in any event, we can't be sure. Another point that the defense made was that the shell casing that was found near Jennifer's body, the detective Vogt could not say with complete certainty that that's where that shell was, because there were gallons and gallons of water in the house. And of course, the firefighters are coming in with hoses, and that shell could have moved a little through the water. He indicated, or he said, that it wouldn't have been, he didn't think it would have been very far, but he couldn't say, how much. I don't know that was much of a point for the defense, because clearly Jennifer had been shot as well as knifed. So you would expect that there would be a casing near her. So some of what the defense did, again, I didn't understand. They're going after evidence and confirming evidence and questioning evidence that has nothing to do with, I think, what their defense is. But nonetheless, they did more of that. One point that I think the defense did make that I think was useful for the defense, how useful is another story, because with regard to the tracking of the blood, it appears that Jesse, from what the blood trail looked like, was moving, maybe trying to get away from his uncle. But the defense said this detective went back out to the house in February 2020. The murders were November 2018, so almost a year and a half later, to take blood swabs, and he hadn't done it initially. And he said he went back out because the officer in the lab who was tracking the blood and trying to apparently get a picture together asked for more blood swabs because he saw a pattern and he wanted more blood swabs. So this officer went back to get them. And the defense point was the house was released back to the family well before February 2020. And therefore, then it wasn't secure. The windows were blown out. Some of the doors were unlocked, and, you could get in and out fairly readily if you so chose to go look. And there was no, the police didn't have a patrol there watching the house when they released it back. And we at least know of one group that went in, and that was that fire expert from last week who has that company and goes in and does origin and cause of fires, and they went through. So we know at least somebody that went through. And so the defense point was you can't count on where the blood stains are because you don't know how they might have been contaminated or tracked by others who were in the house. And, I think that's a valid point. I don't know that you have to know with certainty whether the bodies moved, whether the individuals before they died moved at all. You know that they were killed. You know generally where they were because of the large blood stains. The officer took pictures of those. There are pictures of those, whether this officer took them or not. But nonetheless, it wasn't a bad point that he made. Then the defense tried to make a point out of Tiffany boxes. They called them little blue jewelry boxes. Well, the only little blue jewelry boxes I know are Tiffany's. So I'm going to call them Tiffany boxes. And the defense lawyer said, well, you didn't take pictures of the Tiffany boxes. You didn't see them in the master bedroom. And the officer said, I didn't think they had forensic value. And I don't remember whether I saw them or not, but you can see in the pictures that were taken, the little blue boxes in this wad of fire, stuff that had been burned. You can see them there. So they were obviously there in the second floor, and we do have documentation of them. Another point that the defense made that I thought also actually was, a fairly good point for what the case is that I think they're trying to make, was that when this officer made some requests for evidence, or when he was dropping off evidence to have some testing done, and this was only a couple of days after the killing, he listed Paul, or his partner from the other county, listed Paul on them as a suspect. And so the defense didn't say this directly, at least I don't recall that they said it directly, but clearly the point here is that law enforcement had already focused on Paul as the perpetrator, and therefore they weren't considering Corey or doing a good job of investigating whether the arsonist and the murderer could have been someone else. And from considering the defense that they seem to be pushing towards, I thought that was a pretty strong point to make. Let me see if I have anything else here that I want to talk about in terms of the evidence. There was some talk about some bag that the officer didn't open, and the defense seemed to suggest it had importance, and they showed the officer 4 pictures from what was inside the bag. And I don't know that we ever knew what it is the pictures were of, but the defense thought it was worth mentioning this bag. We may see this come up later. I don't guarantee it, but we might. So then as I say, the day ended early, which didn't please me. I started out saying that. And since we had some time, and since Amber is a wizard, we went over and watched some of the Brian Banfield trial. He's the husband who's accused of murdering his wife with the assistance of the au pair, and doing it in, I just think, a really horrific, indefensible way. Not that murders are defensible anyway, by getting a complete innocent bystander who had nothing to do with anything and never even met his wife, Christine, to come to the home thinking he was going to be engaged in a sort of a violent sex scene, rape, with Christine, the wife, at her behest and with her consent. And so he comes into the house, and then the state's case is that Banfield shot and killed him, and then knifed Christine, and that this individual was still moving around. And so the au pair fired the kill shot, or the last shot. So that's the trial. We had a little time, and Banfield was testifying today, so we watched a little of it. The people in the chat found him not credible, not persuasive. I think they felt that he was clearly making it up, and they didn't believe him. I had a different reaction to it. I thought his demeanor on the stand and the way he spoke was, at least on the surface, credible. And I think that his defense lawyer is a very, very good defense lawyer and has a great demeanor. It is very soft. It is very calm. I like him a lot. And the two of them together, because Banfield's testimony was also kind of soft-spoken, a little hesitant. You know, that combination, I think, worked really well together. But Banfield's case, and actually, again, I think, given the evidence he has to confront and overcome, was not a bad rendition of what had occurred. Because he said that, first of all, he said that the affair, he admitted the affair with the au pair. He said she instigated it. He was down in the kitchen. His wife, I believe, was at work. She worked 11-hour shifts, and that's why they needed an au pair, because daycare wouldn't work. Anything that you were taking the child to wouldn't work, because his wife, Christine, had 11-hour shift days, and his job, while his work day was not that extensive, was not predictable in terms of when he would be working. He traveled a lot. She traveled a lot. They needed somebody in the home. And he said they had an au pair before who was there for 2.5 years, and apparently that worked out pretty well. No one got killed, at least. And now her name is Juliana, I think it's pronounced Juliana, and she was from Brazil, and she's the one who testified against him the other day at the hearing, following what the state's case was, that he wanted her dead, and there's some evidence that he didn't think she was a good mother. He wanted sole custody of the child, who was then 4 or 5, Valerie. And so they concocted this scheme to murder her. So, but he said, which is what I thought gave some at least credible context to all of it, that he admitted that he had had affairs in the past. He said Christine knew of at least a couple of them. He didn't think he knew about the affair with the au pair, but that she knew of at least a couple of them. She also had had affairs, and that they, in, I think it was 2000, I don't have the date here, 2013 maybe, had a long meeting together about what to do. They had tried therapy together. They decided that they wanted to stay together, but it seemed as though it was going to continue to be an open marriage. And therefore, then he said, he continued to have affairs. And the liaison with the au pair, he said he was clear from the beginning, was just an affair. He wasn't going to be leaving his wife for the au pair. And and he said, some of what she said about within 6 weeks, it was hot and heavy, was just not credible, couldn't happen that fast, or something along those lines is what he said. And he said that on his birthday, he had taken his daughter to meet friends because they were treating him to, I think, a lunch. And then the next day he was at McDonald's. He had gotten a text or something from his wife, worried about it, and went back home. And he had told the au pair to stay out of the house. I guess she was out of the house. Don't come back, because he didn't know what was going on. And then he just segues into the story that he had told. He got there. He went upstairs. He saw this, the man was stabbing Christine. So he got the gun and he shot him to death. But it was too late to save Christine. She had died. So that was his story. We also said that when he and Christine, when they discovered they were both having affairs and talked about whether to stay together, they had seen a therapist for a while, which, to some extent bolsters or gives some credence to the story he's telling. So we'll see. He's got more on direct tomorrow, and then we'll see what happens on cross-examination with him. But that was the way we ended today, since we had time, because the trial of Paul Caneiro didn't go until 5. It didn't go until it ended about 3:30 yesterday. Of course, you can't blame Monday on them. Monday was the snow day, but they're not having trial on Friday, which surprised me. I had not heard that, and I don't know what's going on again. Maybe it's the judge has other things to do, but why would he? He knew this trial was coming. So I don't know what the explanation is, but we're not having trial on Friday. And he keeps telling the jury, don't worry, we're on schedule. But I worry, because it seems to me the schedule gave too many days to this trial to begin with, and we should be over. So, well, maybe not over, but we should be close to over here. But so anyway, no trial on Friday. Tomorrow I will obviously do the commentary again, and I will do a recap tomorrow night. And Thursday I will either do a recap or maybe do something on my own about one of the cases that's going on, or maybe have a guest again. I don't know what we're going to actually do on Thursday. So that's sort of a preview of the rest of the week. So are there questions? I have not been looking, so I cannot answer whether there are questions, but you saw that note to post them with a Q, so we know that they're there and can get them if you have them. And I will wait a little to see if you've got questions, because I would be happy to answer them if you do have them, but I don't want to hold you up either. If the recap was sufficient and you have no questions, then we don't need it. Okay. Maureen Conroy wants to know if on Friday we will segue over to Banfield. I don't know. The team will talk about it and see whether that makes any sense to do it for a day, but I'll let you know one way or the other. It's a good question, and I don't have an answer to it. Okay, let's see. Are there any other questions in here? Okay. See, I see some of the other comments. Ollie 1951 says Banfield's testimony was so self-serving he doesn't believe it. And Melissa Navon agrees that it was self-serving and she doesn't believe it either. But we will see. I don't think the nanny from what I saw of her testimony, I only saw her testimony, obviously, in replay. I didn't think she was all that credible either. And certainly the way she looked changed dramatically from the pictures of her when she was living in the house and even the day of the murder, of the shooting. So I don't know whether the jury believed her or not either. What is my general view on defendants taking the stand? And this is from, murder. You're going to have to tell me I know one of those is a murder, but murder by murder, is that what it is? You'll have to tell me. In any event, let me answer your question. In general, I think it's a really bad idea for a defendant to take the stand. There are occasions when the defendant has to take the stand because the defense relies on evidence that only the defendant can provide. Juries always want to hear from the defendant. That's clear. Many defendants, particularly the narcissists among us, want to take the stand because they think they can explain anything away. But it's not a good idea. A good cross-examiner can really decimate the defense. So I don't think there's a defense lawyer out there that thinks it's a good idea. So .U4M doesn't like the au pair but believed her. Did you believe her because you believe the story, or did you think that she made a good sympathetic witness on the stand? That's what I was talking about. It's murder by Maestro. But then why is there an MBM Maestro? Oh, it's murder by Maestro. Murder by Maestro. I'm going to guess that that's what it is because it's an at. All right, there you go. I knew it was murder because I've seen it. I thought I saw it written out somewhere. And I know that Patty's Playhouse just calls you murder, so I knew it was that. Okay. Melissa Navon said, Brendan reminded me of Charlie had an answer for everything. You see, I thought Charlie made such a bad witness he just displayed arrogance and know-it-all, and he was so unlikable. And I thought, maybe the only one who watched this, but I thought that Banfield did not come across that way. I thought he came across as at least somewhat sympathetic. I may be lying through his teeth. I'm not suggesting he's telling the truth or that his story will hold up. But I think for me, there was a world of difference between what Charlie looked like to me and sounded like to me on the stand and what Banfield did. So, but, that's what makes the world, and that's what makes a jury. And the jury, I don't think will be, is going to acquit. You took out the word murder because YouTube doesn't like it, and I said it even more. Well, I believe if you're doing a murder trial that you can say the word murder, and so far YouTube has not quarreled with me about that. I do think, if you're talking about something extemporaneous or you're talking about something in general, that may well be a different story for YouTube. But if you're covering a murder trial, I don't see how you can call it anything other than a murder trial. So we'll see if I get pulled and then I have to explain it. I'll know that you were right, Maestro. Let me not call you murder. And then I said it anyway. And I was wrong. I don't mind being proved wrong. I'd rather be right than wrong. But, none of us are perfect, and I don't get too excited when I'm wrong. I do if I think I haven't prepared sufficiently, or my being wrong is based on just utter stupidity. Then I mind it. But the fact that, I make mistakes, that's, just to think that you can go through life and not make mistakes. I see you call it redrum. I refuse to do it, Christine. I'm going to go ahead on my merry way until they stop me. I'm not going to call it a redrum one trial of Paul Caneiro in New Jersey. Just won't do it unless I'm forced to the wall. And then if I have to do it or lose the channel, I will capitulate, but I won't be capitulating happily. So I'm going to keep on doing what I'm doing until I'm told I can't. Okay. There we go. Let's see. Okay, here's Maestro again. I'm going to try. If a defense attorney knows their client is going down, is it in their best interest to let the client testify so the client can blame themselves? I'm talking about Charlie and Roshbaum. I don't think so. I don't think that's an ethical position for a defense lawyer. You're going down anyway, so let me protect my reputation and let me insulate myself from your wrath because you lost by letting you go on the stand, when I think that can only make things worse. So I guess I don't think that's a reasonable thing or an ethical thing for a defense lawyer to do. And I'd have to think about whether I've seen a case in which a defense lawyer testified where I thought they did that what they did helped their case. I would really have to give that some thought. I mean, I'm sure it happens, but it's the rare case where that would happen. And that's why defense lawyers tell their clients always don't get on the stand. So, okay, let's see if there are any other questions here. All right, let me see. I'm going backwards now to see if there's anything. What I was saying is, if you believe his story, U4M, that they were both cheating and it was an open marriage, then for him, it evidently is no big deal. And there are open marriages out there. I don't understand it, but there are some, and some of them seem to be successful. So now, whether he should be doing it that way in front of a jury who is more likely to see cheating in a relationship the way you do is a different question. Okay. They are not all bad. Some are dead. No, I don't know who we're talking about. Okay. BJWNT says he or she doesn't believe Brian Banfield. Yeah, I think it's perfectly, fine. I mean, that sounds patronizing. I don't mean to be patronizing. You don't have to believe him. And you are joined by most people as compared to my take on it today. And I'm just talking about demeanor. I mean, the evidence may make the story impossible to believe. But I'm surprised, I guess, that at least one of you thought he came across the way Charlie Adelson did, because that I just don't see. So we really do disagree. You'd love me to react to what? What is the that? One of the most interesting moments in any trial was when Katie McBanoa decided to testify. One lawyer clearly wanted her coerce, and one didn't. It was a fascinating moment. Well, it certainly didn't inure to her benefit to testify. You mean testify on her own behalf? I don't know what those two lawyers in that case did, because she's in prison for life when she could have walked by giving state's evidence in the cases. And after Sigfredo Garcia, the father of her children, was convicted, and apparently he told her, do what helps you. The fact that she didn't testify is just extraordinary to me. I do not know what those lawyers were saying to her. It is her choice. It is the defendant's choice whether to do it or not. But I have heard many really good defense lawyers say, that's where you earn your money. You have got to be in a position to persuade the client, to take the deal. It's in the best interest to take the deal. It's in your best interest not to get on the stand. And you would think that those lawyers should have been able to persuade her to take the deal. My only guess is at least Kawas really believed her when she said they had nothing to do. She had nothing to do with it. But that's really, you have to have a clear-eyed look at what the evidence is showing. Um, and I mean, hers is the most remarkable case of, what her life could have been compared to what her life is. And that's not to say I have any sympathy for her or feel sorry for the fact that she's in prison for life. I mean, she was the conduit. She was involved in putting that murder together. She's clearly culpable. So I don't have any sympathy for the fact that she's in prison. I'm just astonished that she's in prison. Okay. Yeah. So you can see, Maestro says, watching DeCoste move away the table with his head in his hands while Kawas was smiling about it. Well, Kawas really believed her. I mean, I really believe that Kawas believed her. And shouldn't have, but did. Okay. Taterbug says open marriages are only successful until somebody falls in love. May true, but if you hear them, they say they're in love, even though, they're having affairs on the side. I don't understand it. I'm not defending it, but that's what you hear some people say. And Melissa Navon is saying no evidence of open marriage or that Christine had an affair. That's why it's interesting when he said they went to see a therapist about it. Or a marriage, he called it a therapist or a marriage counselor. Because if there is that evidence from somebody like that, then the claim that there's no evidence showing any of it may be undercut by someone who can come in and say, oh yeah, we will see. I don't know. I'm just giving you the other side of the picture here, which is what law professors are supposed to do. Okay, I don't see anything else. Anybody else have something that they want to say about this? It looks like the trial will start at 8:30 tomorrow. Hopefully Amber will be all well. Hopefully Court TV won't be having whatever the issue was today, so that we had to move to Amber Stream. And, Amber's been giving me lessons on the side. I'm slowly learning some of these things. But if you had given me 50 years and an open slate as to what to ask, that would never have been a question that I even would have thought about. That somehow we weren't getting the stream while another channel was, and what to do about it. Never would have thought to ask it. Those are the most dangerous questions, though, the ones that you don't think to ask. Questions that you ask are not dangerous, and they're good because you learn. But the ones that you just don't know, you don't even know enough to know that there's a question you might want to ask, those are the ones that are tough. Okay, I still don't see anything more except a thank you. Well, that's good. Thank you too. Oh, and as long as you're saying thank you, hit like. If you go off, hit, what is it? I never remember what it is. Hype, is it hype? I never remember. Hit share. And I will say, I look and I see they're all people who are watching, and maybe 5 to 10% hit like, which YouTube tells me is maybe the average, and I really don't understand it. Unless 90% of you watched but didn't like, which I also don't understand. Why would you do that to yourself if you don't like it? You hype after life is over. That's what Amber said. And subscribe. That would be really nice, because subscriptions help the algorithm, and it frankly allows me to do more things than otherwise I'd be able to do. I have to learn some, but it helps do more things. For those of you who are members, you know that on Sunday night at 6, we're going to do the Murdaugh trial. Some of you, when we had the first meet and greet, wanted to read the briefs and talk about how that appeal will go, and we will do that on Sunday. And I'll see how many of you are going to like doing it as much as you think you thought you would like doing it. Be ready. That's a question I'm going to ask. Charlie's appeal. I said this earlier today. I had wanted to do the commentary on Charlie's appeal, which is on February 3rd. And I had asked how many people would prefer that or to stick with. Thank you, .u4m. You are a good person. You always hit like. You're a good role model, too. And I wanted to see the appeal, but I asked the chat whether you really would prefer to watch the trial this trial rather than leave this trial to see the appeal. And you were unanimous that you want to see the appeal, so we will see the appeal, which I think you'll find interesting. And it'll be interesting to see what the lawyers do and how they do it. So otherwise, with that said, I don't think there is anything else that anybody is asking or wants. So I am going to say ciao a tutti. See you tomorrow. So long, proffers. Have a lovely evening.